Tavakatamratam tapta jivanam kaviviriritam kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadatam Bhuvikananti Bhuriyaja. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We are on the chapter Instruction to Vaishnavas and Brahmos. This is page 297, and it is Wednesday, September 26th, 1883. And just to go back, it says that there were very few devotees with the master, because it's a Wednesday, and most of them came on a Saturday or on holidays. Sundays or holidays. So Sri Ramakrishna is talking to them. Mostly he's talking to an M, but no, all of them are there. And he was talking about an interesting topic, that this Narada bhakti, that he's talking about how he heard this from one sadhu who was from the Nanakpanthi group. That means he was a Sikh, a sadhu from the Sikh group. We don't hear too much about that nowadays, but this was one of the teachings that Thakur, when we say he heard it from somebody, or he says he heard it from somebody, that doesn't mean that it was something new for him, or that something that he learned from somebody else. He gives credit to him, but this was a deep-seated conviction that he had about the Bhakti Yoga, and really it's very much in keeping with what we find in the Bhagavad Gita, that all the paths are good. The path of Jnana Yoga is a little more difficult because it requires a little renunciation. So Thakur adds this in the Kali Yuga. We can simply take that to mean in the present age. We don't have to get too specific about these different yugas, although there are different teachings in the different yugas. That one is dana, one is bhakti. I don't remember all of them, but the different things are suitable to the different yugas. Anyhow, it simply means that at present, there is a path of devotion, as taught by Narada, is the most appropriate. Now, I was going to read it. I forgot to bring it. In the introduction to Swami Bhudeshanananda Maharaj's Kotamara Pashango, his commentary on the gospel, he devotes a lot of time to this idea, and very simply, he doesn't take this in too much of a technical sense, that there's any particular teaching in Narada's Bhakti Sutras that we have to point to. Mostly it means that devotion has to be motiveless. It should be pure devotion. Excuse me. Maybe try a glass of water or a lozenge. Do I have one? I have one. I have. No, that's okay. Where are you going? Don't go upstairs. This is right here. So this is what Thakur was Shuddha Bhakti. This is pure devotion, and that it doesn't seek anything other than love of God. This is the main thing. Narada Bhakti Sutra, that we don't ask for anything short of that. Now, we know that if we have a particular attitude, that we can pray to God for anything. But Thakur says that why pray for anything short of the highest? That if you will go in front of a king, you won't ask for gourds and cucumbers and things. Thank you. So, but on the other hand, there are a few special things in the Narada Bhakti Sutras that are special teachings that Thakur gives also. This thing about increasing the passions and give a twist and give them a new direction. There's Vyakulata that he talks about. Maybe half a dozen special things that Thakur also emphasizes, so that I have my doubt that perhaps Thakur was more familiar with the Narada Bhakti Sutras than we think. He won't quote them or anything, but he was so familiar with so many different scriptures that there's every chance that he had attended discussions and things about the Bhakti Sutras. In any event, this was what he learned from this young sadhu. And then M says, are not sadhus of his class followers of the Vedanta? Master, yes, they are, but they also accept the path of devotion. The fact is that in the Kali Yuga, one cannot wholly follow the path laid down in the Vedas. Once a man said to me that he would perform the Puruscharana of the Gayatri. We finished with this last week. You remember this has to be a reference to the Ishan again. That keeps coming up. I said, why don't you do that according to the Tantra? In the Kali Yuga, the discipline of Tantra is very efficacious. Now, if we want to be very strict and say that Narada Bhakti will be devotion to Krishna, because this is what is most emphasized there, then we can say that Thakur didn't take it in any narrow sense, any concept of God. So he's emphasizing calling on God as mother. This is not one of the five bhavas in the Vaishnava tradition, but is the same philosophy behind it, that we can have different attitudes and different relationships. So Thakur, he accepted these, whatever we find in the Narada Bhakti Sutras, but he didn't restrict it to any sectarian. He removed any sectarian element to it. So not just as a Vaishnava text, but for anything. It is, so this is the new part. That's what we finished with last week. It is extremely difficult to perform the rites enjoined in the Vedas. Further, at the present time, people lead the life of slaves. There's a footnote. Perhaps the master was referring to the foreign rule in India. I would say that this is certainly part of it, but also Thakur felt that putting oneself in what they used to call service in those days. That means having some boss over you, and it was the civil service system was highly bureaucratic. Everybody had a boss over them, and he felt that somehow there was something demeaning about that type of work. Maybe it was a modern type of work. Maybe it wasn't something that maybe they knew about so much in the villages to do that type of work. They were more farmers and things like that. But we have a few instances where Niranjan, for example, that Thakur knew that he would become a sannyasin. And when he heard that he had taken service, this is what he took a job, that he said, if I didn't know that he was doing it for his mother's sake, there was no one to look after the mother, and he had to earn money, he said, I couldn't have looked at him. That meant that he felt that it was a very demeaning thing to have the type of job where there's a boss always bossing over you, that type of thing. And this was, most of the Indians had jobs, especially in Calcutta, with this type of bureaucratic civil servant type of job. It is said that those who serve others for 12 years or so become slaves. They acquire the traits of those they serve. While serving their masters, they acquire the rajas, the tamas, the spirit of violence, the love of luxury, and the other traits of their masters. Not only do they serve their masters, but they also enjoy a pension after their term of service is over. There's also this idea that it's working for the sake of somebody above us is not the same as working for God. Is so a little element of doing everything as an offering to God, a little bit difficult in that in type of environment. Once, a Vedantic monk came here. He used to dance at the sight of a cloud. He would go into an ecstasy of joy over a rainstorm. He would get very angry if anyone went near him when he meditated. Now, this is someone that Thakur is talking about as a high soul. Right? He's not saying he was God realized, but and yet gets angry. Huh? So we have to remember that these even the great sadhus, they can get angry sometimes. That they're also human beings. We have to excuse them sometimes. So he would get very angry if anyone went near him when he meditated. One day I came to him while he was meditating, and that made him very cross. He discriminated constantly. Brahman alone is real, and the world is illusory. There's one nice incident when Totapuri and Thakur were sitting around the sacred fire dhuni. And this was really, I don't know how much influence of the Arya Samaj there was in at that time. Maybe some. Who knows? The Totapuri was from Punjab. Anyhow, this was the main form of worship, was fire. Other than that, it was also for Shaivites and everything. Anyhow, so this fire is a sacred thing. And who came? Hridoy, was it? Or Haladari? Huh? Yeah. Huh? One of them. No, I don't think it's Sadhu. Huh? One of the workers. So one of the workers from the temple came and wanted to light his tobacco, his charcoal, and uses the charcoal for his smoke, and the sacred fire. And Totapuri got very angry, and then Thakur sitting there just started laughing. He said, "Just now we were talking about this. Nothing is real but Brahman, and here he wants to take this from you. Get angry." So anyhow, it just shows this that we all have a human mind. So he discriminated constantly. Brahman alone is real and the world is illusory. Since the appearance of diversity is due to Maya, he walked about with a prism from a chandelier in his hand. One sees different colors through the prism. In reality, there is no such thing as color. Likewise, nothing exists in reality except Brahman. Now, this is a very nice way of understanding Saguna Brahman, Nirguna Brahman, and Maya. Bear with me. Because very often we say, what is the best analogy for Brahman? The sun or light. Now, does the light have any color? Okay. So Thakur says that light is invisible. We can't see light. Huh? No. We see things. We see objects because light is there. We don't see light itself. If we saw the light, we wouldn't see the objects. If the light is tinted, then it distorts the color of the object. If we want to see the object, what we think is the real color, then we have to have a clear light. So light has no color of its own. This is what Thakur even says that. It's invisible. We can't see light. This will be our Nirguna Brahman. Now, if we say that this is the beginning and the end of the definition of light, it's colorless, we won't be getting the full weight because it contains every color of the rainbow within it, even though we don't see it. So that's the potential. So light, as containing all possible colors, will be Saguna Brahman. Now, how does it manifest? It has to pass through a prism. This prism is Maya. The light on the other side of the prism is all the different colors. The sun itself is unchanged, even though the light is taking all the other colors there. So Nirguna Brahman is always there. That Sadguna Brahman is that which is allowing that potential of color to be seen on the other side. And Maya is that which makes the invisible light visible. It turns that unmanifest into the manifest. So this is a very nice way of understanding it. If we start out with pure consciousness and we don't admit the potential for that to pass through Maya and manifest as the manifold universe, then we don't get the full weight. We don't get the full picture. Then we're just eliminating the Shakti aspect or the Saguna aspect of Brahman. So this will be the teaching really of the Shakti school, that this power to manifest dwells within, but it needs this help of Maya somehow. So anyhow, Thakur liked that way of understanding all of this, more so than just a false appearance. This Vivartavada, false appearance, is very, very tricky type of philosophy. That really the rope never became a snake. They just we're seeing it that way out of ignorance. That no change ever took place. This is a little bit more realistic. That yes, there is some change taking place when the light passes through the prism, but the sun itself is unchanged. It's not that is changed into it. So this idea of that Brahman becomes the universe, it still remains exactly what it was before. Both are true. The light is turning into all the different colors, and it's also remaining unchanged. But anyhow, these analogies are meant to help us understand something which is really beyond our ability to fully understand. So one sees different colors through the prism. In reality, there's no such thing as color. Likewise, what is color? There's no such thing as color. The light is bouncing off of an object, and some stimulus in the eye is giving a message to the brain that it's a color. Does the color actually belong to the object? If our sense of sight were a little bit different, we would see things as a different color. My father was colorblind. He couldn't tell between the red light and the green light. Many animals are colorblind. They see everything as a black and white, but there's no reason to think that because we see the sky is blue and the earth is brown and the grass is green, that there's something absolute about that. That's based on the way our senses function. And I have no way of knowing if what I call green is what you call green. See, my father, all these years, he thought that what he saw as red, that we all saw as red, but he saw it as green. He had that red-green type of color blindness. Yeah. So really, this color doesn't really belong to the object. Not even in the way that form. We can say form, there's something objective about it, but color is such a subjective thing. We take it for granted that we're all seeing the same color. Maybe we are. God knows. Don't know what anything looks like through anybody else's eyes. Likewise, nothing exists in reality except Brahman. But there is an appearance of the manifold because of Maya, egoism. Now, he's bringing it down to this Maya as a type of ignorance that covers over us as individuals. We have this cosmic idea of Maya and this individual idea of Maya. When he says this Maya is this I, this ego, then we're talking about that which is covering me as an individual, causing my individuality, but also as an individual, not allowing me to see things as they really are. It's a difficult concepts, this idea of Maya. So now it's identifying with egoism. He, meaning the sadhu, would not look at an object more than once, lest he should be deluded by Maya and attachment. Okay. This is another meaning of Maya. very specifically used in modern language. I don't know about other languages, but in Bengali. I've told this story before because I never knew this idea of Maya. When I spent 1 year in India, staying in the ground floor of a small house. The people lived upstairs, I lived downstairs, and I became very friendly with them. They're very, very nice, a little bit older than I was and everything. And one day, the father, there was a husband and wife and a young daughter. Father said to me, "Do you know the meaning of Maya?" And I didn't know what he was getting at. I said, yeah, some type of cosmic ignorance, this and that. And he said, no. He said, we've developed a little Maya for you. That meant attachment. That meant a little loving attachment. It's very sweet the way he said it. And that was the first time I understood how that term Maya can be used, at least in Bengali. So he would not look at an object more than once, lest he should be deluded by Maya and attachment. So that means that things we like, we get attached to. Also, this Maya, this sense of I, sense of ownership, sense of individuality, all of these things go into it. He would discriminate while taking his bath at the sight of birds flying in the sky. Now, I don't know what this means. Birds flying in the sky, and maybe just the soul flying in the infinite absolute or something. Not sure exactly what he's getting at here. He knew grammar. Okay, now for us to know grammar, that's not a big thing. In India, this Vyakarana, this is a big topic. They'll spend 12 years studying it in Panini and everything. That means quite learned. He stayed here for 3 days. There are some sadhus who do that, Totapuri. They won't stay more than 3 days in any one place. Totapuri, the only time he broke it was when he lived with Thakur, 11 months. Then, of course, when he went back to his own ashram, he must have stayed there. One day he heard the sound of a flute near the embankment and said that a man who had realized Brahman would go into samadhi at such a sound. While talking about the monk, the master showed his devotees the manners and movements of a Paramahamsa. Thakur was a master at mimicking things. Nakul Siddha, the way people dance and sing and everything. Now he's doing it as the Paramahamsa. The gait of a child, face beaming with laughter, eyes swimming in joy, and body completely naked. See, Thakur himself was a Paramahamsa. We call him that for a good reason. That he was like a child, that half the time he didn't know if his cloth was on or not. He didn't care about to wear Ngarua or anything like that. He could look like an ordinary person. For a sadhu to wear these polished slippers, and to wear a regular stitched shirt and everything. These were not things that sadhus did in those days. But Paramahamsa could do it because they weren't bound by anything. It's beyond all of these rules. And then he again took a seat on the small couch and poured out his soul enthralling words. Master to M. I learned Vedanta from Nangta. Nangta is Totapuri. Thakur never called him by his name because it was considered a little bit disrespectful. Just like husband and wife also, Thakur never called the Holy Mother Sharada Devi. It was always Ramlal's aunt. He would never do that. So it's a sign of respect to use some other way of referring to somebody. So we all throughout we'll see the Ganu's mother and this and that referring to people. That it was a respectful way of doing it. So he always referred to him as Nangta, the naked one, because that was the type of sadhu he was. Brahman alone is real, the world is illusory. The magician performs his magic. Now again, when he says I learned Vedanta, this means Advaita Vedanta. We know by now that Thakur had his kind of code words. When he said according to the Puranas, it meant a dualistic devotional type of teaching. According to Vedanta, it meant this Jnana Yoga and Advaita Vedanta. The magician performs his magic. He produces a mango tree which even bears mangoes. But this is all sleight of hand. The magician alone is real. The earliest use of the word Maya in the Rig Veda is this idea of magic. Indratu is magic, things like that. And then I'll be speaking on Maya next month because people have been asking me so many things about it. But it kind of disappears in the Upanishadic period. And we get it later, Shvetashvatara Upanishad. But the earlier Upanishads, we don't run across it. We don't have this idea of the world being illusory. These are all contributions of Shankaracharya and the other Advaitins. M. It seems that the whole of life is a long sleep. This is a very good way of understanding Maya. We don't need any metaphysics to understand Maya. We can understand Maya just in terms of time. We look at our lifetime and where did it go? Everything seems so real and then it disappears, swallowed up by time. Thakur sometimes says that time itself is Maya. A very good way of understanding it. That's why he always talks about anitya, rather than unreal, impermanent, transitory, fleeting. His life is fleeting. Not so much that the objects are unreal, but his life itself, this flow of time. Every day is just disappearing into the past, flowing. It's like a river flowing into the ocean, disappearing forever, existing just as a faint memory. So M, a very nice statement. It seems that the whole of life is a long sleep. This much I understand. This is my favorite statement that M makes in the entire gospel. I fully support this. This much I understand, that we are not seeing things rightly. This much we know, that we're in confusion now. We perceive the world with the mind by which we cannot comprehend even the nature of the sky. We go back to the sky again. So how can our perceptions be correct? Yeah, sometimes we talk about the sky, we see it as blue, and yet we know that it has no color. So how does that happen? How do we superimpose this color on something that's colorless? So this is one of the examples we have for this superimposition, adhyas. Master, there's another way of looking at it. We do not see the sky rightly. It looks as if the sky were touching the ground at the horizon. This is my favorite example. I like this horizon example. We think horizon is a line, this meeting point of the sky and the earth. But the sky is unlimited. That's the infinite. It's the finite blocking the infinite somehow. This is also a type of Maya. And that intersection is what we call the horizon. And that's us. The jiva is that intersection between the infinite and the finite. And there's no reality to it, to that line. It's just this apparent meeting point. The meeting point between the coverings and the self. So we do not see the sky rightly. It looks as if the sky were touching the ground at the horizon. How can a man see correctly? His mind is delirious like the mind of a typhoid patient. The master sang in his sweet voice. What a delirious fever is this that I suffer from? O mother, thy grace is my only cure. Continuing, the master said, truly, it is a state of delirium. Just see how worldly men quarrel among themselves. See, we don't have to, again, go back to this delirium that nothing exists but Brahman, but I'm superimposing objects. It can just be our failure to live in this world as sensible people, through attachment, and through selfishness and passions and all of that. Just see how worldly men quarrel among themselves. No one knows what they quarrel about. Oh, how they quarrel. May such and such a thing befall you. How much shouting, how much abuse. M. I said to Kishori, who is Kishori? His younger brother. Never mentions it, not a single time in the gospel. But he loved him. They came together so many times. The box is empty. There is nothing inside, but two men pull at it from either side, thinking the box contains money. Now, what does this mean? All of the things that we value, that property and nice clothes and big cars and big houses, all of this, that we think that these are so wonderful, we'll be so happy if we get them, that there's no substance, they're hollow. Avastu, Thakur uses this term. Vastu in Sanskrit can mean real, and avastu can mean unreal, but it can also mean that which has some substance and that which has no substance. Padartha or padartha. Yeah. There's another thing I never knew. Padartha I know is a philosophical term. And somebody told me, oh, it means a worthless person. Padartha. So this avastu, the things that we think are so wonderful, turns out they're hollow inside. We're assuming that we'll crack it open and it'll be so joyful and everything. We find there's nothing there. So it doesn't happen for everyone, but for some people, as they go to enjoy the world, they'll find the world is a hollow thing. That it can't, what we're seeking for, what we want to satisfy us, this world can't supply that. So the very M is really making some nice statements this day. M, I said to Kishori, the box is empty, there is nothing inside, but two men pull at it from either side, thinking the box contains money. Well, the body alone is the cause of all this mischief, isn't it? The jnanis see all this and say to themselves, what a relief one feels when this pillowcase of the body drops off. Now remember, this is M speaking, not Thakur. The master and M went toward the Kali temple. See, M's life was very unhappy. He suffered so much, and his family life, of course, the death of children. His wife went half mad. He didn't get along with his brothers, older brothers, and father and stepmother and everything. He had to give up his job over a little quarrel with Vidyasagar one time, and then that had nothing to do, had to start his own school, and just so many different things. So he knew not just the hollowness of the world, but the danger of the world, the ability of this world to really strike us. The master name went toward the Kali temple. Master, why should you say such things? It almost sounded like he's saying better to die, to give up the body and everything. So Thakur says, why should you say such things? This world may be a framework of illusion, but it is also said that it is a mansion of mirth. So there's a hollowness of the world. If that were the only thing there, then of course it's a depressing idea. But if we find out the treasure is within us, that real treasure that we're looking in the wrong place for, then we know that this could be a very joyful thing if we can get hold of that real treasure. Let the body remain. One can also turn this world into a mansion of mirth. These are the two songs we saw before. M. But where is unbroken bliss in this world? Master, yes, where is it? So I agree with him. Sri Ramakrishna stood in front of the shrine of Kali and prostrated himself before the Divine Mother. M followed him. Now, there was a time in the beginning when M would sort of just observe, because he was so trained in the thinking of the Brahmo Samaj that they wouldn't do it, and they took a pledge not to do it. I don't know if M was really, if they had to sign an actual form and pledge that they wouldn't do it. I know Swamiji himself must have done that, and Rakal must have done it, because Swamiji was really angry at Rakal. That here I see you're bowing down to the temple. We took a pledge not to do it. But Thakur said, this is his real nature. Don't worry about that. So anyhow, it would have been before this, but there was a time when we hear M saying to himself that if Sri Ramakrishna himself is doing it, that it must be something good to do. So from that time onward, he would also make pranam in the temple and do all of that. There's one very nice incident. I think it was in a Kali Puja night when he went there and Ramlal was there and he's looking at the chamar. And then Ramlal says, "Would you like to wave it in front of the image?" And he was very, very happy to do that. So there's joy in some of this, what we call image worship, this type of puja and everything. It's all a question of the heart, of our feeling. So Sri Ramakrishna stood in front of the shrine of Kali and prostrated himself before the Divine Mother. M followed him. Then the master sat on the lower floor in front of the shrine room, facing the blissful image, and leaned against a pillar of the Nat Mandir. There's a big open hall with outer pillars, inner pillars, and they would have these jatras and things, dance performances and things would take place there. He wore red bordered cloth, a part of which was on his shoulder and back. M sat by his side. M. Since there is no unbroken happiness in the world, why should one assume a body at all? I know that the body is meant only to reap the results of past action, but who knows what sort of action it is performing now? That means who knows what type of karma we're accumulating now that's going to keep everything going. The unfortunate part is that we are being crushed. We can see the M is not in a very good state of mind at this point, that we don't know what's happening at home and everything. I always have trouble keeping track when he's at home and when he's not at home, because when he first meets Thakur, he had left home, and then there were so many conversations. Will you go back? Thakur wanted him to go back to reconcile with his father and everything and live at home. So he did go back at a certain point. Maybe he had gone back and he's unhappy there, and then ultimately he goes out again, and then he lives very often in the school where he taught at Morton Institute. So he did different things. Sometimes we know he would go and sleep outside with the beggars and the homeless people. And he has to feel what it's like to be homeless, to be like a sannyasin, to have nothing, and to be able to feel the sympathy and fellow feeling with poor people. Master, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. So I was wondering exactly what he means by this. It almost seems like a non sequitur. Why does he bring this up? I think what he's saying is that M has such good tendencies, good samskaras and everything. He's been born into a family where there's so many problems and things, but still that these samskaras will remain. I say this because Thakur uses the same illustration another time with Rakal, that talking about his father was a very worldly man, but Rakal was, of course, the highly spiritual soul, the companion of Sri Ramakrishna. So he uses that same illustration, though Rakal was born in the family of a wealthy person and everything, still. The samskaras that he had will grow into the same samskaras. The potential for the pea, it won't grow into something else, it'll grow into a pea. So maybe he's trying to encourage M a little bit that way. M. But still, there are the 8 bonds, Master. They are not 8 bonds, but 8 fetters. But what if they are? These fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. Do you know what it is like? Suppose a room has been kept dark 1,000 years. The moment a man brings a light into it, the darkness vanishes, not little by little. Now, this is also interesting because Thakur talks about different types of mukti, how we get liberation or enlightenment. And he says some is hartat, some is just like that. But others through sadhana, through long spiritual practice. So How do we understand this? My way of understanding is that the, the path may be a very long path, but when we finally get there, then it's instantaneous, something like that. So, if we take this illustration of the dark room, we may have to struggle for a long time, follow a long path to get to the room. We may have to even break the lock to get in, and we have to search all around to find the light switch. But as soon as we find it, click it, then flooded with that experience. So both are true. It can be a gradual thing, or some people they'll just stumble across it. So he gives the example that somebody's digging for a well, a long time to get the water. Another person starts, and he happens to break into a little spring that's there, and the water shoots up instantly. Yeah. So we have different karma, different and different types.
Pipa is a common factor. Pipa.
Grace is a common factor in everything, because this ego has to die first. Then who is there to complete the job? So this is why Thakur talks about the magnetic mountain. We have to walk close enough to it to get within the pull of that mountain. But as we get closer and closer and closer, the sense of I gets less and less and less. By the time that I completely vanishes, we're close enough for the magnet to pull us the rest of the way. So both. We need both things. Have you seen the magician's feet? He takes a string with many knots and ties one end to something, keeping the other in his hand. Then he shakes the string once or twice, and immediately all the knots come undone. But another man cannot untie the knots, however he may try. All the knots of ignorance come undone in the twinkling of an eye through the Guru's grace. Yeah, this Hridaya Granthi, the knots of the heart, that means all of the confusion that we have, and all of the bondage that we have, all of the things that prevent us from seeing the highest type of truth, that disappears when we have that realization, when the light is flipped on. Well, can you tell me why Keshav Sen has changed so much lately? He used to come here very often. Now, my guess is that Keshav, that Thakur probably didn't know how serious Keshav's health was at this time. I don't think that Keshav really changed or lost his devotion to Thakur. I think it became greater towards the very end. Once Thakur found out, then he was very concerned, and he would ask everybody, how is Keshav, and everything. Who will I talk to if Keshav is there when I go to Kolkata, all of that. I read another interesting thing, and this is by Swami Bhuteshanandaji. He said Thakur never prayed for anything but for the highest, but Shuddha Bhakti. But he prayed for Keshav. And he told the Divine Mother that I promise you I'll give you this dabchini. Yeah, this green coconut and sugar if you save Keshav. No, why? This is to show his tremendous love for Keshav. Swami Bhuteshanandaji says, yes, but also Keshav played a tremendously important role in his Leela. That how many young men he brought to Thakur. So he recognized that also he had that role to play, in addition to the fact that he just, had this deep affection for him. He, meaning Keshav, learned here how to bow low before a holy man. One day I told him that one should not salute a holy man as he had been doing. Yeah, actually, Thakur would do it himself. People would come and just go like this in front of him, something like that. He would bow down. Then gradually they learned this is how you show your respect to a holy person. Hari says rightly, all the checks must be approved here. Only then will they be cashed in the bank. Laughter. M listened to these words breathlessly. he began to realize that Satchidananda, in the form of the Guru, passes the check. Yeah, Thakur, we really can. They use this term. What is it? Kushti or something. What is it for gold? In order to test gold? Yeah, that Thakur was like that. This is something that I don't know how it works. That you touch it to this and you find out if it's fake or if it's real. So Thakur, that's the one that this is how we know if someone appreciates him, if someone is really living up to his teachings, has the real love for him, that there's some authenticity, something genuine about it. Master, do not reason. Vichar korana. This is a statement that comes over and over and over again. Now we think, what is he telling him? He told Swamiji Narendra, he said, you reason everything out. Don't accept anything I say without thinking it through. And if it's illogical, then don't accept it. This vichara has two different meanings. We can say, if it means that always reason what is real and what is transitory, what has substance, what doesn't have substance. Always think of death. Always remember this world is fleeting. Always remember that what the real goal of life is. All of that. This is sadvichar. This is a good type of, what is shreyas and what is prayas. All of that. If this reasoning is always trying to figure out how exactly why the world is the way that it is, why God allows this to happen and not to happen, and unfair things and everything. There are no answers to these questions. So these are the things that he's trying to tell him. Don't be too cerebral about everything. To feel things. Yeah, go deeper, go beneath this mind level. That the mind was restricted, it's limited in its ability to understand some of these deeper things. We have to try to have some experience. So do not reason. Who can ever know God? These are very important things because we ask all of these questions constantly. Constantly, we're asking these questions. That was this universe created in time? Did it always exist? How did God create it? Why did He create it this way? Why are there bad people? All of these questions. Impossible to know these things. So do not reason. Who can ever know God? I've heard it from Nangta once for all that this whole universe is only a fragment of Brahman. Hazara is given to too much calculation. He says this much of God has become the universe and this much is the balance. My head aches at his calculations. I know that I know nothing. Thakur speaking. I know that I know nothing. Sometimes I think of God as good and sometimes it's bad. What can I know of him? Now, we have to remember that the Bengali has no he and she in it. If it'll sound odd, but I think it's more appropriate to say, what can I know of her? Because I think when Thakur is speaking like this, he has in mind this Mahamaya. He has in mind Mother Kali, this mother aspect of God, which also always is accompanied by this idea that it's achintya, that is beyond our ability to comprehend, this mysterious nature. This is part of that whole concept of the Divine Mother. This availing our ability to understand things and everything. M, it is true, sir. Can anyone ever know God? Each thinks with his little bit of intelligence that he has understood all of God. As you say, an ant went to a sugar hill and finding that one grain of sugar filled its stomach, thought that the next time it would take the entire hill into its hole. Master, who can ever know God? I don't even try. I only call on him or on her. Here it is. I only call on him as mother. It sounds odd to us. Huh? I mean, I only call on God as mother. Let mother do whatever she likes. I shall know her if it is her will. Now he's using her. but I shall be happy to remain ignorant if she wills otherwise. I like that Kamalakanta song, though I've pondered all throughout my life. I can't even say, is God Purusha, Prakriti, or the void? Now seems to be one, now seems to be the other. Though I've been thinking about these whole things, yes, my mind is, yes, I've become like a mad person, trying to think of all these things. This isn't an ordinary ignorant person. These are highly evolved souls. Who can ever know God? I don't even try. I only call on her as mother. Let mother do whatever she likes. I shall know her if it is her will, but I shall be happy to remain ignorant if she wills otherwise. My nature is that of a kitten. It only cries mew, mew. The rest it leaves to its mother. The two examples that Thakur used most often, I would say, are this kitten example, and the other one will be no, that's tied in with this. The other one will be the maidservant in the rich man's house. I think these are probably his two favorites. That one is always that idea that we know nothing really belongs to us. Our home is in the village, but this one is always perfect surrender, perfect contentment, and being happy wherever we're placed, fully relying on God, as the kitten does to the mother cat. My nature is that of a kitten. Yeah, he contrasts it to the nature of the baby monkey. If you ever go to the zoo, it's fascinating to see how the baby monkeys, they'll cling, they'll really grab and hold on, some underneath, some on the back, everything. The monkey swinging around, they're holding on for dear life. But the kitten can't even do that. The little baby kitten is meow, meow, meow. And the mother comes and takes it by the neck and carries it and places it someplace. And the kitten says, well, wherever the mother places, then it's okay. If we can live like that, we'll always be happy. And we'll never be frustrated. And we'll never have regrets. And we'll never think, oh, what if I had done this and if I hadn't done that? And we'll have contentment. So Sharanagati and Santosha, these go together. If we can practice surrender, we'll get contentment. It's a very simple formula. Even the child of the maidservant knows that he has a mother. Oh, sorry, I skipped some things. Okay. The mother cat puts the kitten sometimes in the kitchen and sometimes on the master's bed. And other times, he says, and also in the ashes in the fireplace. The young child wants only his mother. He doesn't know how wealthy his mother is, and he doesn't even want to know. He knows only, I have a mother. Why should I worry? Ma'achin, Paramiyachi, Bhavna Kiyachi. It's a beautiful song. The mother is there, and I'm there. So what is there to worry about? Nothing to worry about. Why should I worry? Even the child of the maidservant knows that he has a mother. If he quarrels with the son of the master, he says, I shall tell my mother, I have a mother. My attitude, too, is that of a child. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna caught M's attention and said, touching his own chest, well, there must be something here. Isn't that so? It may sound to people who don't know better, that Thakur is a little egotistical, that he wants to say, oh, yes, how great you are and everything. But when Thakur says something in here, it means that his I is not there. It's the height of non-ego that mother alone is dwelling within. And he wants M to understand that for M's welfare. And M's welfare is our welfare, because he's the one who gave us everything. M looked wonderingly at the master. He said to himself, does the mother herself dwell in the master's heart? Is it the divine mother who has assumed this human body for the welfare of humanity? Sri Ramakrishna was praying to the divine mother. O mother, O embodiment of Om. Mother, how many things people say about thee, but I don't understand any of them. I don't know anything, mother. I have taken refuge at thy feet. I have sought protection to thee. O Mother, I pray only that I may have pure love for thy lotus feet, love that seeks no return. And Mother, do not delude me with thy world-bewitching Maya. I seek thy protection. I have taken refuge in thee. Thakur never says, this is how you should pray to God. He does it. It's just so hard to picture how someone can do it so artlessly, so guilelessly and simply, that and just in front of us, he'll start talking to God like that. But it's for our sake. It's for our sake. When he talks about, he just begins to pray, or sometimes he'll say, this is how I prayed. But he's teaching us how to pray. He won't say to M, pray this way. But he knows that this M will get this message. The evening worship in the temples was over. Sri Ramakrishna was again seated in his room with M. M had been visiting the master for the past 2 years and had received his grace and blessings. Did M ever receive any type of initiation from Sri Ramakrishna? Huh? He probably one of the things that he kept from us. He must have gotten something. Yeah, he must have. Whether it was written on the tongue, we don't know. We don't have any of these. Maybe it's written in some of the other books. I don't know. Do you know anything? So do I. Yeah, he'll say even here. Now he'll say, now I know you belong to the Shakta of Divine Mother. No, he tells him things like that. But we read, of course, with some of the others, some very specific things. He asked him to stick out your tongue, and he wrote something on it. That was the type of initiation. I don't know. I haven't read all of that Srimad Darshan. That if any of it is in there, if he says anything like that or not. But anyhow, we assume that something, even if nothing, he was accepted by Thakur as his very own. Yeah.
But did he initiate any householders back then, Thakur?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Huh? Balaram, yeah, many. Yeah, and we read a little earlier, I forget who it was, that he wrote something on his tongue. Huh? Was it Ish? Huh? Adhar. Yeah. And probably did it then because he knew he wouldn't live long also. And of course, Thakur also wasn't going to live much longer. So M had been visiting the master for the past 2 years and had received his grace and blessings. He had been told that God was both with form and without form, that he assumed forms for the sake of his devotees. To the worshiper of the formless God, the master said, hold to your conviction, but remember that all is possible with God. He has form, and again, he is formless. He can be many more things. Master to M, you have accepted an ideal, that of God without form. Isn't that so? M, yes, sir. But I also believe what you say, that all is possible with God. It is quite possible for God to have forms. Master, good. Remember further that as consciousness, he pervades the entire universe of the living and non-living. M, I think of him as the consciousness in conscious beings. Master, stick to that ideal now. There's no need of tearing down and changing one's attitude. You will gradually come to realize that the consciousness in conscious beings is the consciousness of God. He alone is consciousness. Okay, let us stop here. But just as a preview to the end of the day, this is where Sri Ramakrishna says to him, that is very good, don't reason anymore. You are a follower of Shakti. Okay, so we're stopping here. This is page 300. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatudha Vikraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us.